Hey everybody, it's Squid. Welcome back to my channel. Holy heck of a morning. I am currently missing the half of my charging brick. It's somewhere in the house. I emptied the dishwasher this morning at like 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep for shit. The little wanted to get up at all hours and then all of a sudden wanted to sleep in. I'm still doing laundry. I did 2 loads last night. I'm still doing laundry. It's a day. All right. Hey Flash fan, how are you? Please like and sub and share. We are doing the Collin Griffith trial. We are catching up on day 4. We are pretty much close to live, but because every day is chaos in this house. This mama didn't have the time to sit down and watch an 8-hour trial. So we do it on 1.5 speed because this judge talks unbelievably slow, as well as we skip through breaks. I have been following this trial since October, right after the Carly Gregg trial. Flash fan had sent me this one. We've read through docs. Most of the docs are on, at least the pertinent ones, are on the Discord, which the link is in the description. I also have my merch store that I'm trying to slowly roll out. That link is in the description as well. We are going to hop right into this because after we are done with the morning, Mama's got to run some errands. I got to go grocery shopping because the dude took all the eggs to work today to sell. So we don't have any eggs in this house. And we only have 3 chickens. So they don't lay that many eggs. So he sells them. He trades them for fruit. Guys have fruit trees in their yard. So he trades fresh eggs for fresh fruit. The downside is he took eggs this morning and he left at approximately 0 in the house. And I eat eggs like every day. So there's not enough for us. So we are going to get into this. I actually changed the speed today. I forgot to do that yesterday. I said it was on 1.5 and I lied. It wasn't. Kathy, how are you today? Yeah, 3 a.m. dishwashing. Lori, good morning. Melissa, good morning from North Carolina. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are not in Western North Carolina. And if you are, I will pray for you and hope that you are now getting the resources that you need. We are going to share, and I actually managed to start the yeah, well, here's the thing. We're moving, and where we're moving to, we can't keep the chickens. Our yard is not big enough, and our neighbors will hate us. Right now, we have a big enough yard and a fence so where the neighbors can't see or hear anything. So we are selling the eggs and our riding lawnmower because we have we got a riding lawnmower from a pawn shop. Go figure. For this yard because the front yard is rather time consuming. We're on about a third of an acre ish. Well, we no longer need that. So we are selling that too. We are selling everything. Oh, we've had chickens for about a year and a half. I'm not in that area, but we're sending truckloads of food and water up there. I hope that everybody up there is getting everything they need now. They just that's been a crappy situation from the get-go. We got hit pretty bad by that same hurricane. However, we down here in Georgia, we kind of expect it. So we know that we're going to get shit and we're sort of prepared for it. I don't think North Carolina had that part of North Carolina. I mean, I know North Carolina gets hit by hurricanes, but from the Atlantic, you never really deal with a Gulf Coast hurricane. Hey, Greta, how are you? And hey, Jeffrey. Peachy! JKD Buck, son and dog are still sick. Ugh. We had 4. One unfortunately did not make it.
For the kidnapping charge first. The state's charge of kidnapping first is a specific crime, which means that at the time the alleged kidnapping took place, it had to be the intent to kidnap. And typically the intent is to commit something else. So it's charged right now that the intent was to either further the commission of another felony or to harm or terrorize the victim. Now, as far as the evidence that has been presented in this trial about the kidnapping, we have essentially the two neighbor witnesses who presented any testimony whatsoever about the kidnapping. Both witnesses describe Kathy Griffith as angry. They describe her as, stomping around in the yard, throwing things into a car. The first witness described her swinging her arms around a lot, both away from Collin and as she approached Collin, and even up until she was so close that Collin could reach out and touch her. So at that moment, we have the testimony, which seems to align between both witnesses, that Collin grabbed his mother. She exclaimed, according to witness 1, "Let go, you're hurting my hair." Witness 2 did not hear anything. And then, although it has been argued that Collin dragged her into the house, the actual testimony from the witnesses was that the two went into the house. So if we pause it right there, at this point, we have what we have what could be a defensible touch on Collin's part, that he, in response to his mother swinging his arms in his face, reached out and grabbed her. And whether or not he had the right to do so, either way, it would either be a defensible battery or a misdemeanor battery. When examined on cross-examination, neither witness said that they heard Kathy explain anything about not wanting to go into the house. They did not see her fighting to not go into the house. They saw her legs moving. They saw her go into the house with Collin.
That's it.
And that moment is what has been alleged and the only evidence that has been shown of a kidnapping. So at that point, Mr. Griffith's specific intent to kidnap has to have been stated. We do not have that in this case, Your Honor. We have not heard any evidence that there was any fight on Kathy's part, any unwillingness to go inside of that house in that moment. We know she didn't want to be touched at that time, that she said that "you're hurting me." We don't know if she was upset about him having his hands on her. We do know that he was touching her too hard, essentially, is
whoa. So apparently the fact that she walked in the house, even though she was being dragged by her hair saying "you're hurting me," doesn't constitute being forced. Am I understanding his? And dude, I know you're trying to be a big presence, but when you stand with your legs wider than your hips, you just look like a conceited jackass. I mean, I can see having your legs hip width apart, but if you look, his hips are here. His feet are wider than his hips. He is trying to be a big dude in front of the judge, and it is backfiring, in my opinion, because he just looks like he's constipated.
Demeanor, which would not be sufficient in any case to charge a kidnapping with. So we move on from there. What evidence have we heard in this case that is going to turn this from a misdemeanor battery to a kidnapping? Well, we ultimately have a deceased person in this house. We have, the fact that she is found in the house roughly an hour and 15 minutes after this incident occurred, with the yelling outside and the touch on the upper torso. And we have no evidence of what happened inside the house. We have no evidence that Kathy was not in that house, or wasn't in that house against her will, that she remained in that house against her will, that she was not able to move in that house. The only
Flash fan, it's not that it's not that he's trying to intimidate the court. It's a body language thing. When you're open, you're the more space you take up, the more confident you look. But there's like an over exaggeration that some people do. It's like having your chest up versus being like this. You don't look as confident when you're here versus when you're here. Well, when your feet are together, you don't take up as much space, so you don't look as wide. Well, he's a little over. It's like he's trying to fake it to himself.
The evidence we have of anything that happened inside that house is the body itself, with the forensic evidence that has come into play from that, and Mr. Griffith's 911 call. Mr. Griffith's 911 call states that there was an extended, prolonged fight, and that they ultimately, there's the accident that she fell on the knife. There is no mention that that fight started outside of the house, that it continued inside of the house, that it continued all the way up until the moment of her death. There is no evidence that she was dragged immediately from the porch into the house and murdered at that time, like the state may offer as an alternative. We have not heard that from any witness. We have not seen that in any evidence that has been presented. So again, the evidence of the kidnapping turns back to the misdemeanor battery, that she was touched, that she exclaimed upon the touch, and that she continued into the house without doing anything else to say that she did not want to go in that house. All of the case law on kidnapping gets into whether or not that the crime itself was completed, whether it was necessary to complete the other crime, if there is another crime that's charged, but all of it, every case includes proof that the victim was held or moved against their will. And we don't have that in this case. So we are not even at the starting point of whether or not you should consider a phase-on test or anything like that that falls under the kidnapping a line of cases because we have not heard a single piece of evidence that says that Miss Griffith did not go inside of that house willingly. So for that reason,
make sure she's not
we are asking for a judgment of
food
acquittal
all over
on
my
the
living
kidnapping
room.
charge.
Be right back.
As far as the first-degree murder goes, Your Honor, the evidence that has been presented so far of premeditation is that Mr. Griffith had a conversation with his grandfather in which he said that he wants to kill his mother, that he wants to slit her throat, according to the witness. We have the testimony from the officers who stated that he said things like he wanted to kill her. We have the testimony of Mr. Griffith himself in the back of the car where he said that he could kill her. Again, other than Mr. Walantis' testimony, every one of those officers, every piece of body cam footage, every piece of car footage that we've seen is conditional. That if violence occurs, if she comes at me again, if anything, then
Okay, how are you feeling this morning?
Does not override someone's right to self-defense. If it did, then every officer who ever acted with lethal force would be charged with a capital crime. They are trained to respond to situations, and they know how to respond to that situation. That knowledge does not create premeditation.
Right.
The fact that Mr. Griffith thought about what he would do in a situation where he felt that he was being threatened, and even took it as far as to how he would do it, does not create premeditation. That is not a crime. That can still fall within the realm of self-defense. The only piece of evidence that we have that would go against that is that he didn't have enough marks on his body. I mean, the state offered physical proof that he had injuries. They have argued that those injuries were insufficient in opening. We've not had any witnesses testify to the extent of Collin's injuries, what could have caused those injuries, what could not have caused those injuries. In order for this to be a first-degree murder, we have to have premeditation, which so far I do not believe the state has proven, and we have to have a waiver of self-defense in some way. If there is just a waiver of self-defense, if this was a fight that got out of control, I apologize. You have to. Yes, Your Honor. I understand.
I don't think this is going to go well for him. I understand that he has to, and I understand what he's getting at. I just don't think there's a... Yeah. I don't think it's going to work well in his favor. This judge talks extremely slow and extremely long.
Your Honor, I was speaking as to the if this were a fight that got out of control, and Mr. Griffith was part of that fight, then this is arguably second-degree murder, as would be charged. That this was something that was created inside of the moment.
He's stuck. I will be right back. She got stuck in her triangle.
And that this would be a second-degree murder. So we have I don't believe that the felony murder should be considered because I don't believe that the kidnapping is sufficient to reach that. And there's been no evidence that the kidnapping was a continuous crime. Again, we have proof of her injuries showing that there was some kind of fight. We have proof of Mr. Griffith's injury showing that there was some kind of fight. We don't have any proof that Mr. Griffith made a previous decision to kill in this moment, that this was orchestrated in any way by him. In fact, we have the opposite.
It's a motion
to Miss Griffith showing up at that house without permission to do so.
I found the
being angry as soon as she gets there and never cooling off to the witnesses. At the time that she gets into his face, Mr. Griffith acts. From that moment forward, they go inside the house and it's unclear what happened. We have no evidence. We have no forensic evidence that showed what happened inside of that house to show that this was something that was planned, that this was something that was thought out, and that this matched any kind of a decision that Mr. Griffith had made. If anything, it is more likely that this fight escalated once the parties got back inside. This fight escalated. That there was at some point someone gets a knife and then Miss Griffith ends up dead. And to me, that is the realm of a second-degree murder. That is a standard fight that goes too far, and that is what the jury should be considering. They have not had any proof, again, that would rise to the level of premeditation. They have not had any proof in this crime that anything else would enhance this crime to a first-degree murder. This is a second-degree murder and a battery that happened beforehand. And it is arguably self-defense on either issue, but again, I will concede that by raising self-defense, we have created a circumstance where the jury has to make a finding of fact. So I'm not arguing that this entire incident can't be considered by them. I'm just arguing that it should not be a kidnapping and it should not be under the felony murder statute, and it should.
She has a pickler triangle, and she keeps sticking her legs through it. Oh, Hero, thank you for the $25 super chat.
From two independent witnesses, we saw and we heard that the defendant
Yes, I do.
grabbed Kathy by the hair. He did that forcefully. And what did he do? He
I got
dragged
a
her
whole
slash
bunch
pulled
of
her
them.
against her will as she was protesting and yelling loud enough so that one of the witnesses could specifically hear from inside, looking out the window, stop howling, you're hurting me.
Oh, that's for
At
me?
which point the defender dragged her
Thank you.
slash pulled her into the house, which was clearly
Gave me
forceful,
an M&M.
which was clearly against her
Peanut
will.
butter M&M.
And then once he got her inside, of course, he confined and/or abducted her from outside into inside and/or imprisoned her. The last place that she would want to be would be
You won't want
inside
me.
after being yanked inside by the hair by her son who has told multiple people, obviously, his intent to kill her, when he's furious, when she had just sent him the text message regarding the other person that he murdered by shooting that person in the chest and in the head. And when
I
she
agree.
threatened to come forward and tell the officials in Oklahoma and elsewhere about the defendant confessing that it in fact was a murder, that it was not self-defense, and that he had planned it, the defendant's anger level was through the roof. So once he gets her inside, he has no prying eyes, he has no witnesses, and he can inflict anything and everything he wants to on his mom. So once she gets yanked from outside to inside, and mind you, he had her by the hair, which there's no way she could get loose from that. So as he yanks her inside, once that door closes, that was clearly the beginning of the end for her. Now he's all alone with her, with no witnesses and nobody that could help her. And his intent was to inflict bodily harm upon his mom, or terrorize her, and or to commit or facilitate the commission of the murder. Judge, once the defendant gets her inside, there's not going to be an hour and 15 minutes of these two people talking and having a rational conversation. It was an absolute powder keg that went off immediately. So the defendant, as we come now to the first-degree murder, you can see the pathway by which the defendant pulled her by her hair, dominated her physically. He's 6'2", outweighs her by, who knows, maybe 30 pounds or so. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's younger. He had to go to the butcher block, take out the knife of his choosing, continuing on with the premeditation, and then stab her, not just any place, not just cut her, but stab her at one of the most vulnerable parts in the human body, which is right in the neck. And as we heard from Robert Volantis, the defendant accomplished exactly what he wanted to do for so long, which was to stab her / slit her throat, watch her bleed, and watch the life drain from her, which is exactly what he was able to accomplish with premeditation. So, Judge, I would rely upon the facts and the evidence of the whole record and ask that you deny the defense's motion and allow the jury to consider both the kidnapping charge as well as the first-degree murder charge as we go forward, Your Honor.
Some of the arguments just made. First off, there's been no evidence of anger in the moment on the part of Mr. Griffith. We have the evidence from the neighbor that he was calm, that Kathy was irate, that she was flailing around, and that he reached out, but that his demeanor did not rise, that he didn't start, there was no evidence of rage or anything like that. So I know the state keeps using those words. That's an argument on their part, but that is not the fact that has been shown in this case. As far as the decision to choose a knife, again, that's not a fact in evidence. As far as the decision to dominate her physically, well, we have evidence of bruising. So I guess I would concede that there was a physical altercation, and it looks like this was for the worst. But I don't know that dominating physically is something that has been testified to in any way. Again, it's being argued by the state attorney. The size of Mr. Griffith that keeps coming in from the state's words, that he's 6'2", that he's some weight. We don't have any fact on this size. I mean, the jury has observations. They can see me standing next to him, and they can tell that he's much smaller than me. And I'll tell you, I'm not 6'2". So I don't think that comes into play in a decision to, decide whether or not this was a premeditated murder. And as far as the kidnapping, again, the only evidence we have of Kathy's intent is when she shows up now, when she's throwing things in his car. We have her, yeah, and she had already gone into that house. I mean, she goes in, she comes out with stuff. That stuff was not sitting inside. So we have her not wanting to be pulled by the hair. But again, we don't have any proof that she was pulled by the hair. We have the autopsy of her body. We do not have a single shred of evidence that she was harmed in any way by a grasp to her hair. There's no bruising of her.
Holy crap. Someone right now needs to walk up to him and pull his hair, and even though he might not lose hair, that shit hurts like hell. Like, we don't have evidence that she was harmed by it. Are you telling me that if someone grabs a fistful of your freaking hair, you're not gonna cringe and that's not gonna hurt? These people are not only bad parents, they apparently have what is that freaking pain, the disorder where you don't feel pain. Like, oh yeah. Well, I ate that garlic clove and breathed on her, and yeah.
Scout, there's nothing like that has been shown. So she said, "You're hurting me loudly enough to be heard." That's a battery. She did not say, "No, don't take me in there. I don't want to go in there. Stop." Specifically, if her feet were going up the stairs, and they said yes, that she was moving her own legs, that she went into that house. So I understand the state's argument that they are making.
Once again, I would like somebody to walk up to him and drag him by the hair. Your feet will move, you dumb shit. Excuse me. Say, do what I do, not as I say. Or do what I say, not as I do. You're gonna move your feet. Just because you're physically walking does not mean you're being forced. Like if someone has the pew-pew to your back, you're technically walking on your own volition, but you're being forced. This dude infuriates me. Just the fact that he's so nonchalantly, we have no evidence that she was being forced. She walked. Oh, good Lord. This dude. This right here is what makes me hate defense attorneys. Not even gonna say that, but you might be right, you might not be.
But it is argument. They are not using the facts that have been shown. And the fact is that this is not a kidnapping. This is a misdemeanor battery and then a fight that happened inside. And that fight led to a death.
Any prima facie case as to each element.
Okay, it's on the table.
Is there anything else we need to discuss before we bring the jury?
Judge, when do you usually do a jury instruction?
Girl.
After everyone rests? Was there something in particular you wanted to address now?
No.
Are we ready for the jury?
I believe so.
Hey, I got it. Taster. Yeah. Well, you got. Well, maybe we shouldn't do that. She hit her back on the treadmill and then wanted to like whine about it. It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't do that. I didn't touch my eyes. I didn't. There is. You don't. It is. SEPA. That's the. Congenital insensitivity to pain. It's literally where you don't feel pain. You have to check your mouth for the fact that you didn't bite yourself. You have to check like your toe. You have to basically you never feel pain. Like you could get hit by a car, break both legs, and you would never know. I have not, but that's something worth looking into. All right, the jury is.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you had a restful evening. And thank you again for your service in this case. So, William,
Your Honor, the state rests.
the state having rested its case, what says the defense?
The defense calls Susan Detman to the stand.
This way. Everybody raise your right hand before I vote.
Y'all are bad. Way to make my cat perverted at 10:30 in the morning.
Ms. Detman, will you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell both your first and last name?
Susan Detman. Susan is S-U-S-A-N, and Detman is D-E-T-H-M-A-N.
That's the
Ms. Detman, how are you related to Collin Griffith?
I'm his paternal grandmother.
So your daughter was Kathy Griffith.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So give the jury a little bit of an idea of who the other members of your family are. Who was Kathy's father?
Robert Willantis.
Were you married at some point to Robert Willantis?
Yes, we were married for 19 years.
When did you divorce?
We divorced in 1998.
After you divorced Robert Willantis, did you get remarried?
Yes, I did.
Who did you get remarried to?
Inaki Markovich.
And might need to spell that last name for the court.
M-A-R-K-E-V-I-T-C-H.
Ms. Detman, who are your children from your marriage to Robert Willantis?
John Paul Willantis, Kathy Willantis Griffith, and Christy Willantis Rooney.
Did you list them in ascending order of age, youngest to oldest?
I'm the youngest to oldest.
Do you have another child?
Yes, I do.
Who is that?
Kevin Markovich.
And that's from your marriage to Mr. Markovich?
Yes.
well.
Now,
Somebody
Kathy,
else is,
obviously Collin was Kathy's son.
somebody else is.
Did she have any other children?
Yes.
And it's not a,
Still alive, Christopher Ray Griffith.
And how old is he?
It's
He is 24.
it's not a what the hail stream, and somebody else is streaming the same trial, even though I did it first. So we most of the people in here are my ride or dies, which are my wrenches. So it might seem like overkill right now, but when you got 200 or 300 people in a stream, you kind of need all the wrenches you got. Both theories on how to win an argument with a woman are wrong.
I want to ask you a few questions about Robert Willantis, your ex-husband. When you divorced in 1998, who got custody of your 3 children with him?
I did.
And since 1998, has Robert Willantis been a big part of your life?
No, except for the custody battles we went through.
What about, are you aware of his relationship with any of the 3 children that you had with him?
He didn't have a relationship once he was not granted custody of John Paul. He didn't want Kathy, considered Kathy to be damaged goods. He only sued for John Paul.
Okay, but what was his relationship like with his children after the
Didn't have
divorce?
a relationship at all until Kathy divorced and she reached out to her dad.
When did Kathy divorce her husband and the father of Collin and Christopher?
2019, if I remember correctly. It was like December of 2019 when they filed. And I think it took a couple months for the divorce to actually take place.
Now, we saw pictures of Robert Willantis on a trip with Kathy. Tell the jury about that trip, what you know about it.
So Kathy wanted to meet the biological Robert's mother, the biological grandmother, because Kathy had many medical problems. So she asked me, she said, Dad said he'll take me to California to meet his mom. They lived in Anaheim. The mom lived in Anaheim, California, but you'll have to pay for it. And I said, okay. I said, just please try not to do anything too expensive. And I'll see what points I can use for the hotels. And fly over there. You guys don't need a rental car. You can use your dad's car if it can make it to California. If not, you'll get a rental car.
So, Ms. Detman, did you in fact pay for Kathy to go on this trip with Robert Willantis?
Yes. I paid for all the food, all the hotels, Disneyland, all of that.
And when was that trip?
That was before she got Collin back.
So before 2023,
Yes.
After 2019 though.
And after COVID was over with.
Okay.
So I believe it was 2022.
Are you aware of any other trips like that that Robert took with his other 2 children?
No, he didn't really have communication with them.
All right. So I want to ask about Kathy's funeral or celebration of life. Did the family hold such a thing for Kathy?
Yes, we had a celebration
Wait,
of life
whoa,
right
whoa,
here
whoa,
at
whoa.
the funeral home in Lake.
Are they seriously going to bring up the fact that the dad didn't go to the funeral? He literally said yesterday why he didn't go. I believe that some people don't like to go to funerals because they don't want to. They don't like seeing dead bodies. They don't like seeing their family members, however close they were or were not to them. They do not like seeing them unalived. It's very hard for some people. And just because he's a man does not mean it's easier for him. God, this freaking feminist little shit. Like, this bitch just pisses me off. I'm sorry. She hits a nerve that, like, not even James Owens hit. Not even Gingras hits. Not even Bubbles hits this. This is a female-only attorney problem. Like this. Yeah, well, I only have 3,000 subscribers. They have 700,000, so 700 in my chats is pretty impressive. So I will never have as much as What the Hales or Megan and Tug or any of them people because I don't. Yeah, like, oh my goodness, I just this female attorney, like, the feminism is real, and like she's trying to make it out that he's a bad dad, like she's trying to make it out like he's a bad dad. Oh, see, and that's fair. And I like to go to people's funerals. I personally feel it's paying my respects to that person, whether I was super close to them or not. However, that being said, I completely understand the opposite end of the spectrum. So, hey, poor Marine. It's just this chick hits a nerve with me that, like, no other attorney, no matter how much, like, the freaking attorney, Carly Gregg's female attorney, Bridget Todd, she didn't even hit this nerve. Like, because she wasn't this painting someone out to be a bad person. Like, she didn't even paint out Ashley Smiley to be that bad of a person. Yes, a little overbearing as a mother, but like, not a bad person. She's trying to make everybody out to be bad people who did Collin wrong, except for Collin, who unalived two people. Two people.
Different.
Was she actually buried or was she cremated?
No, she was cremated. She had conveyed to me as well as to her sister and brothers that she never wanted to be put in the ground. She wanted to be cremated and later taken back to the ocean in Key Largo, and her ashes be put at the Jesus statue that we have under the water in Key Largo.
Has that been done?
No, we're going to do that this summer.
Where are Kathy's ashes right now?
Right now, they're at Christie's house.
Flash fan, I only said something good about Todd in comparison to this lady. She might be a good lawyer. However, her personality, she seems like an awful parent. She tries to paint everybody as the bad guy. Your client unalived somebody, and you're not denying that your client unalived somebody. Self-defense or not, unaliving someone is a big deal. And he's not only unalived one person, he's unalived two. So even in self-defense, the fact that you unalived somebody is huge, and she's acting like it's just nonchalant. Well, she attacked me, so I'm gonna take her life. When it looks like she might have had an attitude in yelling at him, but he initiated physical contact, not her. So, like, let's remember that.
Was Robert Wolantis invited to the celebration of life?
No, he was not.
Why not?
Robert tends to be very disruptive. He has difficulty with truth and manners, and we just did not want to have more lies and disruption. The final time that we could say goodbye to Kathy.
I'm going to ask you some questions now that may also be difficult. In the last roughly 2 months before Kathy died, what personal medical things were you going through?
So in the last part of June, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. I had to have part of my colon removed and an ostomy put in place.
After you were diagnosed and had your surgery, did you have a fight with Kathy over Robert Wolantis?
Yes, I did. Kathy was very adamant that she wanted Robert to take care of me, that I needed to pay for his flight from New Mexico to Lakeland, get a hotel for him for 2 weeks, and get some sort of a car, and even pay for his food. And I told Kathy, I said, that's ridiculous. He hates me. I don't want to be hurt by him. Plus, has lost his nursing license. I want a real nurse that has.
Okay, hold on.
I'm not just object to all this collateral accusations.
Ms. Detman, as a result of you not wanting to follow Kathy's wishes as far as Robert Wolantis coming here and taking care of you, did that cause a break in communication between you and Kathy?
Yes, she refused to talk to me. She blocked my phone. She told me if I came over to the house, she would have me arrested for trespassing. She
I don't really think
she said you can contact Collin.
she's trying to
You can't
appear
contact
more
me.
emotional than she really is.
And that, okay, I'll move on from this.
I think she had so many problems with her daughter that this is my personal opinion, not to push around accusations, but my personal opinion based on the way she's talking about her daughter, she doesn't give a crap that she's not upset that her daughter is not alive anymore, because although it was her daughter, now she doesn't have to deal with that drama. And she sounds like she doesn't really care about her daughter. Like, it's just, yeah. Started to answer before the question is finished. Yeah. And I understand testifying, especially when you know that the trial is being streamed, is quite possibly a very intimidating experience, especially if you're like me and you don't like public speaking. So, yeah, everybody who knows me knows my two worst fears are public speaking and reading out loud. So make it make sense. That dude just.
Mr. Wolantis on the stand mentioned
You're well
that
faster.
Kathy got Collin a second phone, and that must have been what Collin used to talk with Mr. Wolantis on the phone every week or every other week. Tell the jury what you know about a second phone.
The second phone, I purchased a second phone when Collin came to live with me in the January, February time period, the first time she threw him out. And I couldn't leave a kid in the double wide by himself without a phone. Plus, since I didn't
Wait,
live,
hold on. Why didn't Collin have a phone with him when he went to live with you in January of 2024?
because Colin and I were at the Mexican restaurant in Port Charlotte. Kathy and Colin and I were supposed to go. When I got there, Kathy said, no, I don't want to go. And I said, come on, at least have some nachos or something. No, I don't want to go. And I said, can I take Colin with me? Sure. So while we were at the Mexican restaurant, she called me and she said, don't bring Colin back. I never want to see you or Colin again.
And the phone that Collin had at that point, where was it?
It was at Kathy's house.
Okay, so you brought Collin to,
The double wide in Arvindale. And I didn't have internet because, of course, I wasn't there all the time. So if I needed to, I hotspot my.
And this is on
computer, even
1.5
extra expense
so
for
like
internet or cable
sounds
or
like she's
any of
up to
that.
fast.
And so I realized I couldn't leave Colin here without a phone. So I told him, I said, we're gonna have to go to AT&T and get a phone for you. And I even got a 786 area code because that's the area code that I have in the keys.
and that second phone, did Collin have possession of it from January of 2024 all the way up until September of 2024?
No. He only had possession of it for that small amount of time from when he came to, which would have been
Let's see what this sounds like.
the
A
end
normal
of January, the beginning of February. He had possession of it there. And then when he left, he took it and I immediately got it by shout leaving out.
Okay, I'm actually going to show you.
Woman, stop shuffling papers.
What's been marked as defense exhibit number 16 and see if you recognize it.
Now you know why I do that. I'm assuming so. But you know what? And I know even defense witnesses, they're subpoenaed, so they really don't get a choice. However, you choose how you answer the questions, the tone of voice that you have, your body language when you're up on the stand. Those are all things that you have control over, no matter what the questions are. And he is not making herself look super great. Oh my God. J. Katie Buck, the Daryl Brooks trial, I can't talk about without getting agitated. And here's why. I am from Wisconsin. My cousin used to own a house
According
less
to
than
this,
a mile
okay,
from the
No,
parade
do you
route.
recognize those messages being
No.
between you and Kathy?
No.
Okay.
I know that area quite well. Hey, Road Mama.
Do you remember there being a period in January of 2024 where Kathy, where Collin was with you for several weeks and Kathy didn't remember that he had gone with you?
yes,
And do you know what was going on with Kathy at that time?
she was suicidal, taking pills. She just didn't want to have her life. She was drinking
Okay.
excessively. She drank Everclear as her alcohol of choice.
Okay, Ms. Detman, just answer the questions, okay? You mentioned that she was suicidal in January. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 15.
I hate Brooke. Well, the thing is my mother, she lives in Georgia now, but when she lived in Wisconsin, when she retired, she wanted to be a dancing granny.
See if you recognize the subject matter. of
And my
those
cousin,
texts.
my cousin's son plays baseball and was about the same age as Jackson. So
Yes.
it's that one's super personal.
Defense exhibit number 15 and evidence.
Objection,
No objection, Judge.
and received.
Ms. Detman, Defense Exhibit 16 stated February 5th of 2024, and the blue text at the top was Kathy's number 941-258-0963,
Yes.
and were you the number below that?
Yes, ma'am.
God, this chick
You
has
mentioned
really
the
bad
786 number, but you had two phones, correct?
Yes.
Why did you have two phones?
I used one for work and one for personal.
So The blue message on top talks about Kathy just having been released from the ER for an accidental overdose. Was that one of the times that she had had a suicide attempt?
Yes.
So the phone that you bought for Collin
Hey.
in either January or
KU Thunder, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Thank you for popping your super chat cherry in my chat, so to speak, in your first super chat on the live stream. I appreciate you so much. I just had to stop and celebrate.
February of 2024, and I'm sorry if you already answered this, but he didn't keep that after the brief period that he lived with you then, did he?
He went home with it and I had it back on the weekend.
Okay, so shortly after he went back home to Kathy.
Yes.
So Kathy, it sounds like off and on had estrangement from various family members. You
Hey.
mentioned that you and she didn't speak for quite some time after your cancer diagnosis. Had she cut other members of the family off at other times in her life?
Her and John Paul were not speaking.
Ooh.
Do you know why?
Yes. She got mad at his wife because the house wasn't clean to her standard. And she said, I'm going to call DHS, which in our state is Child Protective Services, that Isabella was not taken care of, that she was in danger, something. I know DHS ended coming up to John Melantes' house. Of course, the investigation proved that there wasn't a problem. And John just said, I would never have anything to do with her again. She crossed the line.
Any other family estrangements from Kathy besides you and her brother John?
So Kevin and Kathy were supposed to go to Washington, D.C. together.
Kevin is your son with
Yes, and Kevin
Benaki.
and Kathy were pretty close. They were supposed to go to Washington, D.C. together because Kevin was in officer basic training in Virginia for the Florida National Guard. He just graduated from college, and he had time off during the 4th of July. And Kathy said, it'd be great if Collin and I could meet up with John Paul in Washington, D.C.
Do you mean Kevin or?
Kevin, I'm sorry, Kevin would meet up. I was supposed to go because, of course, my cancer, I
Okay.
couldn't.
Miss Melantes, I'm sorry. I know you're nervous, but the estrangement, how
Yes.
that
Hello.
What happened
Sorry, I
is
was muted.
Kathy contacted Kevin and said, unless you help me get your father arrested, meaning Inaki Markovich, I don't want you coming to Washington, D.C. with me.
Do you know what Kathy was referring to as far as helping her get your husband arrested?
Yes, they had had an altercation in our farm in Arcadia during COVID. So it was during 2020, around Easter time. It was before Easter. She threatened him with a baseball bat. And she also said she was going to get her gun and shoot him. And my husband brought a shotgun out and said, I have a shotgun here. We're not going to be doing this. And later she said that he used the shotgun, fired the shotgun. And I said, it was a double wide. I think I would know if a shotgun had been fired in the ceiling in a double wide.
So after that interaction between Kathy and Kevin, were they estranged from each other for a while? But it sounds like she would kind of change her mind about who she was close with or wanted to have communication with. Is that?
Yes, because she called Kevin the next day and said, I'm sorry, come on to Washington, D.C. with us. And Kevin said, I already told my cadre, my leave's been canceled.
Okay. Are you aware of threats that Kathy had made to commit
I think I
suicide?
did one of them.
How many are you
I'm going to
aware
do that
of?
on a,
You know.
Aware
on a
of
Sunday stream, on a chill
Okay.
stream.
No, 6.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 14.
See if you recognize this.
Yes, I do.
Like to admit defense exhibit 14 into evidence, please.
Objection.
No objection, Judge.
We proceed.
What is this exhibit?
I wasn't sure if Kathy showed that to me. I wasn't sure if it was blood or magic marker because I didn't
10:48
see it
a.m.
physically. She said that it had something to do with a song she was listening to. And she was upset because of the divorce.
And you can't quite see it now, but did you see a video of, so you can see the triangle for play. Had you seen the actual video of this?
Yes.
In it, can you see what's written on the left side of Kathy's arm? I mean, you can't see it right now, but do you remember what it said?
I don't remember what it said because it was just so horrific that that she was doing this. to
Morning,
herself.
81.
Come up here so don't forget.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but this testimony, like, I'm over this. Like, I don't know about y'all, but if I was the jury, I would have lost interest in this woman just trying to figure out or just trying to paint the deceased as a bad person. Did she have her issues? Yes, it sounds like it. Are some of those issues from living and having to take care of a child who murdered somebody else? And possibly believing that you were next? That you is it possibly that she had a child at 14? Like, she's 39 with a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old at the time. Like, this was a very young mother. Did that have something to do with it? Possibly. But to paint the deceased as this horrible person, and the reason she's horrible, the rogue mama, perfect way of putting it. Being a biatch doesn't mean you deserve to be ended. Yes. And the fact that this defense attorney tried to say that she went voluntarily in the house, even though she was having her hair pulled, and he was pulling. Yeah, this is the defense. This is the victim's mother, and the defendant's grandmother. It's just one of those, like, yeah. And JKD Buck, I agree. When you get sick, and things aren't going your way, you seriously find out who your friends are. You seriously find out who your friends are. The people who would give me crap for calling in sick because I had a headache and that I was faking it just to get time off work. And then all of a sudden, you need brain surgery, and people start to backtrack. It's like, oh, I know you aren't my real friends. And that's why I talk to like 4 people that I used to work with, because they all bitches. That's why I don't talk to females, because they all catty bitches. Except for the ones I talk to.
Have you actually
I'm
called
gonna cut
law
that.
enforcement on occasion when Kathy made suicidal statements to you?
Yes.
All right. So
No
you said you
problem.
know of about 6 threats. What about actual attempts by Kathy to kill herself? Or was that the 6 and I misunderstood?
Those were the 6 attempts.
Okay.
And just because someone attempts to unalive themselves does not mean that gives anybody else the right to unalive them. I know there's a thing, suicide by cop. However, it's not suicide by son. And if you're going to have somebody, if you're going to set somebody up to unalive you, I'm assuming a sharp object to the neck that is very painful would not be the way to go. Just saying.
Can you describe
YouTube,
some of
don't
those
listen
for
for
the
that.
jury?
Yes. So the first one was while she was still married, and she was very upset, and she had overdosed on her
It's so random.
trazodone. And she told me, I was in Key Largo, and she lived in Key Largo at the time. And I said, I'm gonna have to take you in right now to emergency room. You're gonna die. And she said, no, I'm not going in.
Ms. Detman, it's okay. You don't have to give all of those
I'm
details.
sorry.
That's all right. I understand. So that was one attempt. What about other attempts that you're aware of?
So the second attempt was when she was in Port Charlotte, I had to go over the fence and open the sliding glass door. And she was in her bed, all dressed in black, and with a revolver in her hand.
And had she done anything with any medications that
Yes, she
time?
had overdosed on the oxycodone.
Did she end up going to the hospital that time?
Yes,
Any other attempts that you remember?
yes. There was another attempt with oxycodone again, about 4 months later. Then there was an attempt with medication and Everclear. The second attempt, she went back to the emergency room and was admitted. They were active. The third time, when I called Port Charlotte Police, they got there and said, she appears fine to me. If she wants to drink in her own house, that there's nothing we can do. And then the most recent time was just in August of this year, August 21st. She called me and said she had overdosed on metoprolol, heart and blood pressure medication, because the other ones didn't work. So she said, I did that. And I said, have Collin take you to the ER. No, I don't want to go. Have Collin take you. Finally, I talked Collin into taking her to the emergency room.
So, to your knowledge, Collin was home when she overdosed and actually had to drive her to the
Yes.
emergency room in August of 2024.
Yes.
You mentioned that Kathy had been Baker acted. Was that more than one time?
Yes.
The jury has heard a lot about some things that Kathy claimed that were maybe not true. How would you describe Kathy's reliability or her reputation for truthfulness?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can we go sidebar?
It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It's pretty much like where when someone is, threatening to unalive themselves, and like cops this is just one minor example, where their cops are trying to talk them down, and all of a sudden they pull a pew pew out on the police and aim it at the police. If you aim a freedom seed thrower, a wireless hole puncher at the cops, expect to be and sometimes people do it it's one of those things of like, it's not common, but it happens, where it was like this person was suicidal. They pulled a freedom seed thrower on the cops, and the cops throw freedom seeds at him. And it's sad, but it's pretty much like it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So it's one of those things of just because and that's another thing that people have to look into when you're looking at an officer involved shooting. Was this person just looking for a reason to get shot? There's a lot of things that go into an officer involved shooting besides, what the media wants you to make it out to be. So, like, I saw in Florida, of course, because it's Florida, man. It was actually Port Charlotte, I believe, Charlotte County. I saw body cam on Donut Operator's stream about a guy who unalived a police officer, or unalived a Charlotte County deputy, and they cornered him in the parking lot, and it was he had what it looks like an AK-47 and thousands of rounds. He was prepared for something. So when he aimed the weapon at cops for a second time, they took him out with one shot to the back of the skull. But, things happen that are more than just the cops are bad people. And Flashman, I completely understand you don't like cops. I don't like I don't like cops. Well, I like cops, but when you're dealing with cops in a professional manner, cops are not your friend. I even have friends that are police officers, retired police officers, that say, in a professional capacity, do not talk to us because we have body cams and anything you say on camera could be used in court for anything. Even when you're the victim, be careful what you say. Thanks, Hung Hero, for the $2 super chat. I have opinions on
Stepman,
officer-involved pew-pew events.
I'm going to
Yeah,
go
me
through
too.
some individual things and ask you about them, okay?
Good morning,
First,
King
I'm
Taco.
going to approach with defense exhibit number 17 as it's been marked.
Yeah. And it's like you never really know how you're going to react when someone pulls a freedom seed thrower on you until you're in that situation. This cop in Charlotte County, Florida, was just
Just read it and see if you recognize it.
this cop in Charlotte County, Florida. I'm not sure when the incident was, but the video that he made came out a couple weeks ago. It's the guy. I guess he had an expired plate and he was at a gas station and the cop just pulled up behind him and was actually going to help him. Like, hey, let's figure out how to get this. I'm not going to give you a ticket. Like, and the guy went into his weapon or in his car, pulled out a rifle and shot the police officer for absolutely no reason. And that's what kicked off that. So it's and see, like there's a thing, like there's black cops too. Like I get it. I'm not downplaying your situation at all, but like every situation is different. And I feel like whenever you hear something in the news, the first thing that comes into play and that's mentioned by the media, which is why I hate the media, is the race of the people involved. And it's like, and they only seem to share stories where it's a white officer and a non-white perpetrator or victim or whatever. So like, yeah, I just it's one of those things of like, I'm not saying that all cops are good people. One bad apple can spoil the bunch, such as Hung Hero's case. My cousin was shot and killed by a cop last month, looking like a bad shot based on the actions by the review board. Big lawsuit pending. Yeah, and I understand that does happen, but not every officer involved shooting is unjustified, and you can't paint everybody with a broad brush. And that's what I feel is wrong with society. Is everybody tries to be black and white about everything, one camp or the other. And like I always say it, we live in this giant gray area somewhere in the middle where two things can be true at the same time. So, okay, now getting back to where we at.
There's been a text from Kathy to you.
I am going to go and put my breakfast plate in the dishwasher. I will be back.
Do you
Yes, I do.
I've asked that defense exhibit number 17 be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
It is received.
In this text from June 27th of 2024, Kathy says that she was here and pressing charges, going to 77 Hewlett Drive. That's your address, correct?
That was the address in Auburndale.
To check on you and to pick up Inaki for charges of attempted murder and assault against you. Meaning she's claiming that Inaki actually tried to murder you, correct?
Yes.
Is that true?
No, he's never tried to murder me.
So that's something that Kathy threatened and claimed that just simply wasn't true, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Has she done that on other occasions, make things up?
Yes. Yes. She made up that I was diagnosed with Lynch disease, which is it's an auto-recessive disorder where people have to have, they're more prone to cancer. So she said that her insurance company was forcing her to have a hysterectomy because of that. She also told Christy, and Christy was so distraught.
Okay, Ms. Stepman,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. No, it's okay. I understand. So she made up that you had a disease that you do not in fact have.
No, I verified with my oncologist that I didn't have.
She also made up that John Paul Volantis had been neglecting his child, right?
Yes,
Has she ever made anything up about Robert Volantis?
yes.
What did she make up about Robert Volantis?
When she was younger, she said that Robert raped her.
And how do you know that that's not true?
It went to court, so I don't know. I only.
Did she ever tell you that she had made it up?
Oh, yes. Later, as an adult, she told me she had made that up.
Did she say why she made it up?
See you
Yes, because
later.
she was mad at the situation between Robert and I.
Okay. Has she ever made anything up about her being responsible for everybody else's successes in the family?
Yes, she went as far to say that no one in the family would have any of their degrees, and that she, in fact, the only reason that I got my doctorate was because of her.
Okay. And did she actually make a threat to you regarding this
Yes,
belief she
did.
had?
She said she was going to, when she was mad at me one time, she said she was going to contact the university where I work at, and I said, go right ahead. No, I had to.
Okay, well, if your daughter was such a bad person, why were you in constant contact with her? Why did you not go low contact or no contact, which is usually what happens when you have a problematic family member, i.e., some in-laws that think they're your child's mother. Separate story. But she is. This woman seems to have nothing good to say about her daughter, and I'm sorry. Like, I know I'm not a perfect person, and I know my mom could name off like 15 or 20 negative things that I've done or have said in my life. That's 15 to 20 without thinking. If she were to sit down and make a list, I'm sure she could come up with more. However, like, I'm sure the same amount of things that my mom could come up to say that were negative about me, she could come up with the same positive. This bitch can't come up with one thing that was positive about her daughter. But just because you're a shitty person does not mean that you deserve to be deleted by another family member. Like, I just don't. The disconnect is like, now I'm wondering if she was subpoenaed by the defense or if she asked to testify for the defense. Like, just can't.
What did she tell you she was going to
She said
say
she's
to
going
them?
to call the university, my dean, and tell him that she did all of my coursework and that I didn't do anything and that I was a phony.
And once again,
Did she make up at any time that you're aware of that Collin was failing school?
Yes, she said that he had been failing school and that when he was staying at my house, it was my fault because I wasn't observing him on the computer to make sure he was doing his work.
Was Collin ever failing to your knowledge?
No,
When did Collin graduate from high school?
he graduated last June.
Was that actually ahead of schedule?
Yes, that was a year ahead of schedule.
And did he, in addition to graduating early, did he ever, did he get college credit?
Yes,
At the
he
same
was
time.
dually enrolled in college.
You mentioned earlier that you had paid for some trips, the trip for Kathy to go visit Robert Volantis and meet his mother.
Mhm.
Did you pay for other trips for Kathy?
Yes, the cruises that they went on, I paid for.
And the other trips that the jury has seen pictures of Kathy and Collin, who paid for all of those trips?
I did.
Did you also have, you mentioned points and using points for things.
That's our DVC, our Disney Vacation Club, as well as I have points through Hilton Honors.
Have you ever witnessed Kathy not being able to control her temper?
Yes,
Can you describe some of those
yes.
times?
She went,
John, if we may approach her on.
Oops. Sir,
the headset that Mr. Griffith is using is on mute somehow. I can't figure out how to unmute it.
Does it not have a,
It doesn't appear to have any buttons on it at all, but I may not just know how it works.
almost certain that it's plugged in?
It indicates that it's on mute. It has like a little, that's the one I've been using.
Oh my goodness. Sir Frank Otter, I hope you feel better. King Parker, I hope you feel better. Everybody, if you're sick, I hope you feel better. It seems like everybody's got something going on, but it's that time of year. Yep. Yes, she is shitting on her daughter who was murdered by her grandson. You got that exactly right. The dad seemed to have both positive and negative things to say. Like, he didn't deny that his daughter was kind of nutty. However, he also, I understand that, but that's not all she has left. She has other kids and other grandkids. So it's just, but like when you have nothing good to say about a person, and that's all you can do is say negative things about them, why are you in contact with them? Like, I have a couple family members who are assholes, and I no longer speak to them. Because they bring my mental health down. Hello. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? Oh, there she is. There we go. And that's true. And Rogue Mama, I understand your point and your perspective based on your life experience. It's just, sometimes I'm like, it's just easier to cut people out. Mr. Squid has blocked his mother's phone number. What's up? What's up, honey? Oh, the jury leaves. The jury leaves. Where are you?
Members of the jury, I'm going to ask that you step into the jury ring for just a few moments while I discuss a matter with the lawyers.
All right, please.
Was called a couple of times, but we don't have those reports because they're sealed, because they're dealing with a minor, so we don't know what family court is. Girl, I'm trying to use that, Squid is like, what's family? No, I mean, it's just one of those things of when a family member just drags your mental health down for so long. And, well, with...
Exactly.
Didn't really sink in. DJ Squid. DJ Squid on the mic. She did mute me? Oh my goodness. There we go. Girl, don't mute me. No, on top of this mic, there's a touch button. You don't even have to push it. It's just a touch. Yeah, she did. On top of this, there's a mute button. And it's not a push button, it's just like touch screen. You can pick your nose, but you can't pick your family. Well, there's that. Hey. Hey. Boo. Are you adorable? Oh, okay. Girl, you're gonna push yourself backwards. Come here. Oh. Let's see what they're gonna talk about or not. Ugh.
To instructions, one when the reputation is known, and one when it's not, but it's offered to prove that the alleged victim acted in conformity with that reputation.
Hey, Taco, I just need a daughter who doesn't flip everything all the time.
How you're doing that, or are you not using that?
No, I think it is relevant because the defense is that Kathy grabbed the knife in the house in Auberdale, and that fits with past instances where she pulled a gun on Collin, where she attacked Inaki with a baseball bat and said she was going to get a gun, where she pinned her then husband against the house with a car, that she stabbed her husband and burned him, and those were in front of Collin, and she has independent knowledge of those too. So those are the specific instances.
Judge, I have nothing further to elaborate on besides my objection in the hallway. And I object to anything that will be contrary to what Your Honor just read in the jury instructions, Your Honor. It might be a, I don't know, it might be a question by question journey to see what, if anything, is admissible or relevant based upon the application of the question asked by Ms. Thornhill, the jury instruction differentiating between, as Your Honor pointed out, the reputation or things that the defendant has to have been present for, have personal knowledge of, and Ms. Stedman, depending on how narrow, or maybe I should say how wide her answers are going to be.
As far as her reputation, it's my understanding that her reputation within the family was for being dangerous and violent, and people were scared of what she might do at any given moment. So I was going to ask about both.
Well, I understand the community for purposes of this type of reputation evidence may be narrower. You're still going to need to lay that predicate.
Sure.
This is a family of estrangement after all, it seems, so.
Because of her violence.
Well,
Yeah.
but I don't know who's estranged from who else, so.
Well, it,
You know, she needs to understand and know that family and community.
Okay.
So,
and even if somebody's not still a part of that community on this particular day, I mean, they
well,
all.
I'm not suggesting it has to be at some particular instant in time, but I haven't heard a lot about her closeness with others who may share that in that reputation or have knowledge of that reputation.
Okay. I will do my best. Is
And
this
we'll
our-
just take it question by question as Mr. Levine suggests.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead and just take our mid-morning recess?
That's what I was going to ask, if I could.
Mr. Levine?
Yes, I'm just.
All right, we'll take 10 minutes. We're back on record. Defendant is present, both lawyers, state counsel is present. We're ready for the jury.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Stop muting me. She muted me again. Girl, I'm gonna put you down. And I whoa. Bust everybody's eardrums, including mine. Well, hey. Hey. We love you. Where's your bag?
No.
Oof.
All right, please.
Girl. Ooh. I didn't. Yeah. No one needs to hear it all.
Ask you about some specific instances and may ask you to describe a little bit about them. So starting with, are you aware of Kathy having pinned her then husband to the wall of the house with her running car?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. And were you present for that?
No.
Have you ever, are you aware if Collin was aware of that incident?
Yes,
He was aware.
yes.
What about an incident where Kathy stabbed her then husband with a corkscrew and then burned him with a terrarium light? Are you aware of that incident?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you aware that Collin was present for that incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware of Kathy threatening to kill her then ex-husband's girlfriend's family in Homestead?
Yes, I am.
Are you aware that she actually started driving toward their house to follow through on her plan?
Yes.
Did you actually speak with her on the phone then?
Yes, I was telling her that what she was doing was crazy. She was going to get in trouble, that she couldn't take it out on 3 innocent lives in Homestead. She needed to turn around and go back home.
Are you aware if Collin was aware of that incident?
I'm not aware.
The incident where you said Kathy attacked your husband with a baseball bat.
Yes,
Are you aware if Collin was aware of that incident?
I'm not aware of that.
And have you ever personally witnessed Kathy engage in a physical act of violence towards Collin?
I know that there was a fight at the house in Port Charlotte, and the fight started because she was beating him with a belt and making him do push-ups, sit-ups, push-ups, and then holding a weight above his head while he was running in place.
Okay. When you say that she beat him with a belt, were you actually there for
Yes,
that?
I was, and I tried to stop it.
What about, are you aware that Kathy pulled a gun on Collin?
Yes, and then later she said that originally she denied it, and she said yes. She pulled out the gun and handed it to Collin and said, just kill me, shoot me.
So she actually admitted that to
Yes.
you. And obviously Collin was aware of that because he was the one who was present with her.
Yes, and Corporal Rentas was aware of that also,
How was Corporal Rentas aware of this?
because he and I and Kathy were talking about that. There's a difference when you take a gun out and give it to somebody and say, here, kill me with this, versus somebody pulling a gun out and putting it to their head or to their chest.
And so Corporal Rentas was a part of this conversation where Kathy admitted she pulled a gun
Yes.
and she said she handed it to Collin.
Yes.
Did she ever admit that she actually threatened to kill Collin with it?
No, she never did.
Within your family, we talked about some of the family members, despite some of the estrangements that Kathy had, would the family sort of maybe not talk to her for a while and then everybody would come back together, take trips together? I mean,
I was a constant in her life. My oldest daughter didn't talk with her while she was married.
okay, what I'm asking about is, did the family talk about Kathy with each other?
Yes,
And whether or not Kathy was estranged from anyone at any one particular moment, did the family continue to have discussions about Kathy?
yes,
And was there, did Kathy have a reputation within your family as being violent?
yes,
Did she have a reputation as being unpredictable
yes,
and volatile?
yes.
Despite all of this, did you still love Kathy?
Yes, very much, very much. I always wanted to help
He didn't
her.
sound like it.
It appears that Kathy at times wanted Collin with her at all costs, and then at other times wanted nothing to do with him.
Yes, when she had Collin back for about a month, she spoke with me and she said, Mom, I have to get up every morning at 6 o'clock, take him to school, and then I have to go back and pick him up. And I said, you don't have to, let him ride the bus.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 26 for identification.
Sorry, that's number 10.
26. Will you read this and see if you recognize it as a text?
Yes,
And that's what Defense Exhibit number 26 be admitted into evidence.
Objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
You received.
In this particular text, Kathy saying she's done with this. She can't take Collin to school anymore.
yes,
So that was a specific example of what you just described to the jury.
yes,
As part of this vacillating back and forth that Kathy seemed to have about whether she wanted to have Collin live with her or didn't want Collin to live with her, did you all agree eventually to a concurrent custody plan?
yes, we did.
And that was something, did anybody force Kathy to sign those papers?
No, not at all, not at all.
Were there times when Kathy wanted to cancel the 751 plan, the concurrent custody plan?
Yes,
And then would she change her mind back?
yes.
Okay. So it's safe to say she wasn't consistent.
She was not consistent.
I wonder if some of her issues with her son have to do with the fact that
Obviously,
she knew that he
Kathy
killed
owned a gun,
his dad.
right?
Yes,
So at some point, did Kathy give her gun to you to have it out of the home in Port Charlotte?
yes,
Do you remember when that was?
yes. It it's right after the incident where Officer Rentas and Lacey got involved when Collin came back to the home. So that must have been somewhere in the October timeframe of 2023.
How long did you have the gun at your home and away from Kathy and Colin's house in Port Charlotte?
Less than a week,
Okay. Why did you have it for less than a week?
because she demanded that I give it back. She said, "It's my gun, you can't have it." And I said, "Well, we discussed with Officer Rentas and Lacey
Sorry,
that I
no.
would keep it." "No, it's my gun, you can't have it. And how do I know Nikki won't use it?"
Thank you for the 199 super chat.
So Kathy got the gun back, and
Yes.
so far as you know, she had it with her.
She had told me that she had given it to her next door neighbor, Melanie, for safekeeping. And then a couple months later, she said, "No, Mom, I lied to you. I had it all along."
Finally, you had a lot of communication with Kathy on September 7th and September 8th,
Yes.
right? You also had communication with Collin during that time.
Yes.
Did you allow Collin to go to your house in Auburndale when Kathy kicked him out?
Yes.
And why did you allow that?
Because a child can't be just roaming around the street by himself. Collin told me he didn't have gas in his car. He only had like half a tank. That was it. He didn't have his phone. He was using his computer somehow to talk with me. I told him, I said, "You have to get to Auburndale before dark, because otherwise the gates will be closed. During the day, the gates are open, and go in through the back sliding glass door, because you know there's no lock on the back sliding glass door. And I will be there Sunday. Don't talk to anybody and don't leave the house."
At some point, obviously, Kathy, as the jury's heard on some videos, was trying to find out if Collin was actually at your house.
Yes.
When did she finally discover that he was at your house?
I let her know around 11 that night.
On the 7th, so
Yes.
Saturday the 7th.
Mhm.
And how did she react?
She said, "You lied to me." And I said, "I told you I didn't know if Collin was there." I said, "Because I don't want you going over there and grabbing him. You just throw him out. Give him some time, give you some time. Let's not have a huge problem associated with this."
And aside from conversations that the jury has heard between you and Kathy over the next hours, did you specifically tell Kathy not to go to your house in Auburndale?
Yes. I said, "I will be going Sunday morning." I left first thing Sunday morning. I was going to leave right then, but I was so tired and I had difficulty seeing in the dark that I thought, no, it's better that I wait. In hindsight, I should have gone. But so I waited. I talked to her. She said, "No, Mom, I'm going." And that's when she said, "I sold the car. They're going to come by and pick it up." I said, "You can't sell Collin's car. It's his car." "No, I don't care. I'm selling it. I'm turning it into this probation officer for not, because he's not allowed to leave the county." Which when I talked to the probation officer, I found out that Kathy had told them that I had terminal cancer. So therefore, Collin could come and visit me anytime I want. I had to tell the probation officer, "Well, right now I'm only at stage 3, so no, and I'm only in observation, so I'm not terminal." So
But you personally told Kathy to not go to Auburndale.
yes, I told her, I said, when I get back, I will give him gas money and I will follow him there, or we can wait until Monday morning. Let's just wait. Don't go there. You don't
Why-
have permission to go.
Why did you not want her to go to your house in Auburndale?
Because I didn't want her to start a fight with Collin. I was afraid that she would be combative and go after him with a baseball bat, a gun, something.
I don't have any other questions, I don't think.
Poor Maureen. On that note, I also have a document or a video from another YouTuber, a pilot, who went over what he thinks based on his aviation experience of what he thinks happened, hearing the audio as well. He got a hold of, well, he's a pilot, so it's not hard for him. He got a hold of the audio, the air traffic control audio, and it's as bad as it sounds. So, but the CRJ had the right of way.
Questions that Mr. Levine does.
Good morning, Ms. Dedman.
Good morning, sir.
Ms. Dedman, I know you're going through a lot with the loss of your daughter and cancer and everything else. But I'm going to need to ask you some questions if that's all right with you.
Thank you, Jay, for the $1.99 super chat. Rude, I can't be everywhere. I know, I'm sorry. Yeah. But once this trial is over with, we will be going into that. And I'm also looking for documents on another case that Rogue Mama alerted me to. So we have a lot to do.
Yes, sir.
Now, today here in court in front of the jury, you talked about that you were concerned that Kathy was going to attack your grandson, and then you listed a bunch of different weapons. But weren't you more concerned that your grandson, who had killed someone before and had been violent countless times with your daughter, weren't you concerned that he was the one that was going to attack your daughter?
No, he had not been violent countless times with Kathy. Kathy had been violent with him countless times.
Now, a lot of the things you've said here today, you never bothered to tell me or law enforcement or anyone.
Objection. Judge, it's improper.
Ms. Detman, as it pertains to your grandson, do you talk to him a lot on the phone since he's been in jail?
Yes,
Okay. Do you do any emailing with him?
I don't email with him while he's in jail.
Do
No,
you
just
prefer
talking on the phone.
to talk with him? All right.
Yes.
And how many times a week would you say that you talk to your grandson on the
I
phone?
usually talk to him 3 times. I encourage him to pray. I ask him if he's eating. I mean, I'm a dietitian, that's what I do. That he's drinking his milk, that he's exercising in his cell.
Why are
And
dietitians
most
some of the most
important, he's
unhealthy
reading
looking
books
people on the
and he's
planet?
trying. You've got to pray. You've got to read your Bible.
Now, I mean, this is an obvious question, but you love your grandson, correct?
Yes,
Your daughter is dead, clearly,
yes.
and she's not coming back, correct?
No,
Now, would you agree that you don't want to see the defendant have to go to prison for a very long time? Is that correct?
I don't want to see my grandson go to prison for something he didn't do.
All right, but
Wait, whoa,
you
whoa,
just
whoa,
you couldn't
whoa,
make it any more
whoa.
crystal clear
Whoa,
that
whoa,
you're up
whoa.
there.
Something he
and all-
didn't do. Something he didn't do. No one is denying that he killed her. No one is denying that. She's the only person that seems to be denying that. And AT1, I believe, if I remember this video correctly, I watched it. He has audio of the Black Hawk interacting with air traffic control as well. So, it was not secure communications. It was the ATC communications, which are public. I used to listen to air traffic control audio when I worked on airplanes, and also when I worked for a civilian airline. But I can't remember where I used to do that. I know I used to follow tracks of flights on FlightAware, but I can't remember where I got the audio from. But the air traffic control audio is public, and that's them interacting with everybody. So you'll see them interacting with the Black Hawk as well. And
So,
Your answers that you've given have been driven by you believing that the defendant, your grandson, didn't murder your daughter, correct?
I am giving clear answers, sir, as to what happened. I know my daughter. That's why I didn't want her coming that day to the house without me being there. I wanted her to wait the next day so that maybe she could calm down a little bit.
You know your grandson too, correct?
Yes,
And you know his history, correct?
yes.
Now, you say you know what happened, but you weren't there when it happened.
No, I'm not saying that I know what happened. I know the possibility of what could have happened. I wasn't there, so I have no way of knowing. I just know the facts about Kathy, having lived with her and worked with her, even to try to maintain her sanity, to try to maintain that she could keep her job as a teacher, to try to maintain that she wasn't trying to slice herself and kill herself, and
Okay.
not going after my husband with a gun.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Kathy. Now, it sounded like she had some mental problems. Is that correct?
Yes,
Now, you would probably agree that it didn't help that she got impregnated when she was just a child, correct?
she was 13. She got impregnated when she ran away from the Hope House, and they found her in the hotel with her boyfriend. It didn't help that her father called her F bitches and that she was damaged goods, and he didn't want anything to do with her.
Ma'am, it sounds like you're really quick to try to throw dirt on your dead daughter. Would you agree with that?
No, not at all. My dead daughter did the best that she could. We have a problem in this country with addressing mental health. We all know that. And that's what she had. She had mental health issues. At times, she was the greatest person on the world.
All
Very
right. I
intelligent.
appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Now, your daughter worked as a teacher for many, many years, correct?
Yes, she did.
And her students loved her, correct?
Yes, they do, for the most part. I mean, as with any teachers, you're going to have some students that, I mean, I'm an educator myself. You're going to have some students that don't. For the most part, yes.
And she cared about her students, correct?
She did.
She had a passion and a love for
If
teaching.
she,
Yes, she did.
And she taught predominantly.
if you know she had mental health problems, why didn't you not get her help? You said there's a mental health crisis. Well, you let your daughter down, lady.
She taught English, correct?
Yes.
And she cared so much about her students that at a certain point, she let one of her students move in when she was married to her ex-husband, Chuck, correct?
Yes.
And then, unfortunately for your daughter, Chuck took advantage of this underage student, is what is believed to have happened, correct? And
Judge, I'm going to object to the elements of all this.
Approach.
Sorry, y'all. Snack time overruled. Court time. I will look at it again, but I will I believe that I heard them interacting with so however he got that audio, whether it's public, he's a pilot, he's been a pilot for 20 years. He got it. So it whatever the NTSB said is not 100% accurate as far as the audio that I heard.
Ms. Detman, I'm sorry we have to talk about some unpleasant things, but it'll be over soon enough.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. So, do you recall my last question?
Yes. You were asking me why I was spilling dirt on my dead daughter, and I said I'm not. I said I supported her. I've gone into massive debt in trying to ensure
Okay, ma'am.
that she
I
had.
appreciate that, but that was a few questions.
Oh, you're talking about how Kathy ran away from the Hope House and they found her in the.
No, I'm not talking about that either, but if you listen to my questions,
Oh.
it'll get easier. So, we were talking
Sweet Jesus, this bitch is argumentative.
about your daughter, that she was a very committed teacher and very committed to the youth of her classroom. And I mentioned that at a certain point, she even allowed one of her students to move into the household, and it was believed that Chuck had an inappropriate relationship with this student. Are you aware of that? With a yes or no answer, if we can start at that place, I'd appreciate it. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And you were not a big fan of Chuck, as it ended up being.
Thanks
the
for being a
divorce,
member
correct?
for 4 months.
How he treated her, from
Thank you.
how he impregnated her as a child through the years, being physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive to your daughter. I can't imagine you were a fan of that, were you?
No, Robert was a fan of Chuck.
Now, ma'am, I understand that you hate your ex-husband.
I don't hate him.
Well, it sounds like you're throwing stuff about Robert in a lot.
You just asked me if I was a fan, and I wanted to tell you who in the family was. I knew Chuck from the
Your Honor,
time he was.
Stephen,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's the point. He gets to ask the
I'm
questions
sorry.
to elicit the information he's looking for. If additional information is needed, yes or no.
Holy crap, she's argumentative.
Just pay
Okay.
attention to the question that's asked.
Whether she has points or not, I as a jury member would be like, she's not listening, she's argumentative, she's hostile. Like, I just can't. It's so bizarre. So bizarre.
I'm trying to answer just the question that's asked.
I apologize.
That's all right. Mr. Levine?
Appreciate it. Ms. Detman, as it pertains to your last piece of information that you provided, as it pertains to your husband, he hated Chuck for what Chuck did to his daughter, that being impregnating a little girl, correct?
I'm going to object to the relevance and to speculation about what Robert thought about Chuck.
Sustain that's relevant.
All right, Ms. Detman, if I ask you a question that for your information, just please answer it, irrespective of your feelings about your ex-husband, all right? Now, at a certain point, Kathy got divorced from Chuck, correct?
Yes,
After years of unthinkable abuse, correct?
yes.
Now, let's move on to a different subject matter. When your grandson lived in Oklahoma with his dad for about 3 years or so, at the end of that,
your grandson wanted to come live with Kathy and actually was able to, correct?
Yes,
And Kathy was very happy about that, correct?
yes,
And she felt that she had missed out, understandably so, on multiple years of her son's life, correct?
yes.
And she was trying to fix or make your grandson's life better.
She was trying to improve his lifestyle, yes.
Now, you described it as a fight in Port Charlotte where law enforcement came because you said your daughter was beating Collin with a belt and made him do sit-ups and push-ups. You remember that?
I did push-ups, and I took away the sit-ups. It was push-ups and putting the weights above his head and running in place.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Now, you remember talking to law enforcement when they came out there, correct?
Yes,
And giving a sworn statement because you just wanted both parties, your grandson and your daughter, you wanted everybody to be safe and healthy and happy, correct?
yes.
Now, Ms. Devon, as to the root of what the issue was that night, do you remember telling the deputy that the three of you were at the dining room table and Susan had Collin seated down and Kathy told Collin that she would be implementing new parenting rules and Collin would be having his Xbox, his cell phone, and other items taken away as disciplinary action due to him being disrespectful to her. Do you recall telling law enforcement that?
I remember telling law enforcement about the Xbox would be, I don't know if it's taken away, but it was going to be restricted.
And at that time, your grandson didn't want to hear from his mom. And so he stood up and threatened to fight her and said, let's just do it. Correct?
That was after the incident with the exercising and belt, the beating of the belt. That's when Kathy wanted us to all sit down and eat sandwiches. Like it literally went from one extreme to another, sit down and eat sandwiches. And then Collin got up from the table and said, let's just do it. And I went to go get my phone to contact Officer Rentis or Corporal Rentis or Officer Lacey.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now, you mentioned that you and your family members love to talk about how violent Kathy was. Is that right?
No, we didn't love to talk about how violent Kathy was. We talked about what we could do to help her. We didn't want her to lose her job. We didn't want her to be suicidal. And more than anything, we wanted her to try to get better.
Did you talk about how violent your grandson was?
No.
And why not? Weren't you concerned about that?
Objections.
Now, you were concerned about where the defendant would live, correct? In terms of who he might hurt, whether he lived with you and your husband, Nikki, or if he lived with Kathy.
My husband did not want Collin to live with us because he said that if Collin lived with us, Kathy would be over at the house and he didn't want to have to deal with Kathy.
Ma'am, didn't Nikki say he didn't want Kathy, he didn't want Collin to live with them because he was afraid that Collin might kill you or kill him?
No.
All right, now let's move on to the subject matter of kitchen knives or butcher knives. Do you tell the jury about the time when you noticed that there was a knife missing from your residence there in Auburndale, and you were trying to figure out who stole the knife or who took the knife?
Yes, there was a small knife with a blade like this that I bought at the dollar store, which is now like the $1.29 store, and
You don't buy knives at the dollar store?
And it wasn't in the drawer with the rest of the knives and silverware.
And did you find out eventually that your grandson had taken the knife?
Yes.
And he basically told you he just needed it just in case and did not elaborate on what he was going to do with it?
He said he just needed it.
Now, at that time also, Kathy made it explicitly clear to you that she was afraid that the defendant might hurt her, correct?
Not at that time, it was later.
And there was multiple times when Kathy let you know that she was afraid for your safety and for her own safety.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that a couple of things about the 7th and the 8th of September. You mentioned that Collin told you that he didn't have a phone with him on the 7th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were you aware that he did have his cell phone with him and it was in his car?
So his cell phone had been turned off by his mother. She used to do that anytime she'd pick him out, she turned the cell phone off. In fact, it's in the records that she turned it off, and she turned it on, and she turned it off.
I have AT&T. It's not that easy like she's making it out to be. It's not like my Discover card that I can go in and freeze it and unfreeze it whenever I want. It ain't that freaking easy, lady. You don't just go and turn it on and turn it off and turn it on and turn it off without AT&T questioning you as to why you want to repeatedly turn it off.
And you mentioned that the sliding door that it had no lock on. Is that correct?
We had adapted the sliding door for a jockey door so Freddie could go in and out when he was staying in Armandale on Gaston House. And so it did not have a locking mechanism.
I'd forgotten Black Sheep. Sorry, I didn't see you come in.
And so that's how you mentioned that your grandson was able to get into your house on the 7th.
Oh, the front door was, I don't
The
believe
child
I
killed his
burglarized
dad
and The burglars got
person.
in quicker than I could find my lock. I don't lock things.
But the jury doesn't know that.
Now, your response when this was going on, when law enforcement made contact with you, was that you didn't know that Collin was a psychopathic killer, correct?
I never said that.
If I may switch these around. I'm going to show you page 59 of 67 of your statement on September 8th.
Let's see it before you approach.
Okay.
I wanted you to see what you're
Thank you.
referring to before you approach.
And if you could just take your time and read the highlighted portion to yourself.
For one thing, I don't use words like stupid, Colin. I would never say that.
Oh, man.
He just wants you to
Oh,
do that to
okay.
yourself.
Oh, I'm
Oh
sorry.
my-
I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right.
Jesus Christ, woman, just answer the damn question.
We may need to go sidebar real quick.
Have you finished reading it?
Yes, uh-huh.
Approach sidebar, please.
This lady. No, sir, he is a psychopathic killer. There's a difference. Oh, I win her probably. Like, I understand that it's her grandson and she had problems with her daughter, but like, he lied to the cops and said she fell on the knife. The medical examiner said that there is no way that injury could be caused by falling on a knife. And so he not only did it, but he lied about it. And he has a history of killing his parent. Wow, that's a long sidebar.
I think you're right.
And Jeff, I totally understand that, but to
Miss Dedman, we're almost done, all right?
admit that
You're
you
welcome.
didn't get your daughter
Miss
help,
Dedman, is it a fair
And-
statement that Kathy had expressed to you that she was getting very
when she literally yells at the prosecutor and says, "We have a mental health crisis in this country. You know that." And you didn't do shit to help your daughter with her mental health crisis. That's a you problem. And despite having mental health issues, she didn't deserve to die. She didn't deserve to die at the hand of her son, who also killed his dad. There's that. Sidecars are better than sidebars. Ask Ghazni. Oh, I would love to talk to Ghazni. I would love to have Ghazni on this channel, but he doesn't even know who I am. He said hi to me once in Vice's chat, and that's it. I know, Jeff. I'm not trying to argue. This lady and the defense attorney. I don't like females. I don't like argumentative females, which is why I don't like myself some days. But like, it's just this chick has me pissed. Because it's like, I've seen people with mental health issues. I've worked in hospital for 6 years. You can take the phys rehab out of mental health, but you can never take the mental health out of phys rehab. And like, you literally admitted that you didn't do shit for your daughter. What happened? And then, then you have the balls to yell at the prosecutor and say, "We have a mental health crisis in this country." Well, you didn't do shit to help that. Now, did you?
frustrated with the fact that your grandson went to his chores, was disrespectful, and was basically just taking his mom for granted.
Yes.
And when Kathy was
Which is the second
communicating
thing.
with you on September 7th and September 8th, that was the Saturday and the Sunday, she did so by both text messages as well as phone calls, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Kathy made it clear that she wanted your grandson home by 10 a.m. on Sunday, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then when that didn't happen, when 10 a.m. came and went, she still made it clear that she wanted your grandson to come home, correct?
Yes.
And Kathy mentioned that she wanted him home. She wanted him to go get work at Domino's from like 4:30 to 8 or 8:30 on Sunday, correct?
Yes.
And your grandson was working at Domino's, correct?
Yes, he was.
And so Kathy wanted him home so he could then go to Domino's that night, correct?
Yes.
And then kind of towards the end of the communications, then Kathy told you she was going to your house to get Collin to come home, correct?
Yes.
And she told you that either he could go home with her or he could drive, basically follow her in his car, correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for your time today, Ms. Dedman.
I have no regret.
Witness release.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's over with. Thank goodness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Rest. There being both parties have rested their cases.
Oh,
The next phase would be
That's a
closing
good
arguments,
idea.
followed by your instructions on the law and then deliberations. Closing arguments in these types of cases are typically not short. Also, I need to have a conference with the lawyers regarding the jury instructions, although it is up to me to decide what laws apply and how you should be instructed. They do have a right to get input. That conference will take some time. So if we did all of that, closing arguments, we would be sending you out probably mid to late afternoon. And I don't want to do that to you. So I'm going to give you an early day today. We are going to work the rest of the afternoon to get all of those strings tied up so that tomorrow morning we'll begin directly with closing arguments and the instructions will already be finalized and you will be probably going to deliberations around lunchtime, I would imagine. So you're going to have an early day. Now, although you have heard all of the evidence, actually, I'm not quite sure about that. Give me just a moment. Would you approach this sidebar real quick?
oh, another sidebar. So that was their only witness. That was their only witness.
Few
Interesting.
minutes with the lawyers outside your presence. So if you would just wait for us in the hallway for a moment.
All right, please.
Mr. Griffith, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I did not ask you about whether or not you wanted to give testimony in this case, so I need to talk to you about that. I assume, based on your lawyer having rested, that you did not want to testify. Is that correct?
No, Your Honor.
That's not correct, or no, you did not want to testify?
I did not want to testify.
You left?
Talked about that with your lawyers today?
Yes.
And you talked about it with them on more than one occasion?
Seven, yes.
And did they answer any questions you had about whether or not you should testify and address any concerns you had about doing one thing or the other?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And do you need any more time with them before you answer my question in a few minutes about whether this is your final decision? Do you need any more time?
I'll take a minute.
All right. So he can, Mr. Larson, if he can take them to the jury room.
All right, let's skip ahead. I mean, if I don't think he's going to testify, but we shall see.
Just a few minutes, I assume, as long as you wanted to talk some more with your lawyers about this, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did they answer any additional questions or concerns that you had?
They did, Your Honor.
Any questions of me about your right to testify versus your right to remain silent?
No, Your Honor.
And it is your right to remain silent, and I'll be telling the jury that you're not to be concerned by that or view it as an admission of guilt. But one thing I need to make certain of is that you understand that this is your choice in this case. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
There are many things your lawyers can do without your permission, things they can do that you disagree with, even things that you speak up and tell them you don't want them to do, but not this. You understand?
Yes, Your
Have they explained that to you, that no matter what they think, it's your decision?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, they are supposed to give you some advice and counsel about what they think you should do. Are you satisfied with the advice and counsel they've given you?
I am.
And today, are you under the influence of anything, drugs, alcohol, or medicine?
No, Your Honor.
And any concerns related to competency? Have any of those arisen over the weekend, Mrs. Longfeld?
None.
Mr. Hendry?
No, Your Honor.
And has anyone, including either of your lawyers, promised you anything or threatened you to keep you off the witness stand?
No.
This is your choice and your choice alone?
I know, Your Honor.
Is it?
Yes.
And you do not want to testify?
I do not.
Anything else you want on the record?
No, sir.
Mr. Hendry?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, we can have the jury. I find that your choice is freely, knowingly, and intelligently made, and that it's made upon the advice of competent counsel.
And Your Honor, we're not raising additional argument on judgment of acquittal. We're maintaining our previous motion for the caller.
Same rule.
Okay, so he's probably not testifying. All dark colors, like his soul. Their only witness that saw nothing but clearly making attempts to save him while putting the family dynamic on the victim. Yeah, They made no attempts. She was on Xanax, but they made no attempts to actually like seem to help her or him for that matter. Yeah, he had a probation officer and that one officer that he was in contact with, but like they don't seem to actually they didn't seem to actually help her. Like no one seemed to help her. They helped her deal with him, but they never actually helped her. And I'm wondering if some of her issues came from the fact that she lived with a killer and someone who she believed did not act in self-defense when they killed their dad. I truly believe that she thought he murdered his dad. So, should being the key word. Should. With the government, I trust nothing. Little more trustworthy of it right now. Yeah. AKA victim blaming, also abuse. Yeah. And apparently the tariffs that were supposed to go in place against Mexico are being delayed by a month because Mexico is sending 10,000 of their troops to the border to help with the drug issue. A tweet by Donald Trump just a few seconds ago. This?
Ladies and gentlemen, as
Or
I was saying,
the white,
although you have
yeah.
heard all the evidence in this case,
They need
you
a
still
better
haven't heard
IT
the
guy.
arguments of the lawyers or the instructions on the law. So remember, it's not time to think about how you might decide the case or to formulate any opinions about the merits of the case. Also, remember to avoid the news as I previously instructed you, and to avoid talking about the case with anyone or looking anything up. Now, tomorrow, you'll be receiving this case for deliberations. I want to remind you that a jury may deliberate as much or as little as it feels necessary to that particular jury to do so. But what that means is that it's possible your deliberations could go past 5 o'clock if that's what you all agree to. It could be earlier than that, but the point is you may want to let those who would normally be expecting you after 5 o'clock, that if you're not home, that the jury has chosen to continue deliberating. So just keep that in mind. Also, if you've been bringing your lunch during jury service, you may still do that, but I want to advise you that the court will be providing you with lunch tomorrow because I anticipate you will begin your deliberations around lunchtime. That way you won't have to separate because you won't be allowed to deliberate unless you're all together at the table in the jury room. That will facilitate your deliberations beginning as soon as possible. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 8:30.
All right.
AT1, I agree. It's not about these things being permanent. It's about these things being meant to facilitate other means of getting a job done. And sometimes the process isn't always pretty. So we will see.
I want to make sure everyone gets a sufficient break before we start, especially the court reporter. So we'll just take 5 minutes for a break.
All right. So we are almost caught up. When they take their lunch, if they take a lunch,
For the record, these instructions were proposed by the state.
all right, I think I'm going to do jury instructions tonight so that they're all grouped in one stream. I'm not going to start jury instructions and then take a break and then come back. As we've learned in Captain Kern's daughter's case, jury instructions are everything. And it's very, very important that the jury instructions are clear and actually have all the information in them. If you do not know what I'm talking about, see the last 45 minutes-ish of my stream last Thursday with Captain Kern. That is a Father's Love Tessa's story. His daughter was tragically unalived in 2022, and the jury instructions decided that they didn't that manslaughter wasn't a felony. So when they said what a felony is, they did not include manslaughter. And that right there might have cost the person who did it many, many years behind bars. Jury instructions are vital, so I'm going to do that all in one stream so that they're clear. It's plus it's about noon, and I want to keep these streams to about 2 hours because they're easier to follow. I don't like trying to go back and rewatch a 4 to 5 hour stream. when I'm really only interested in certain aspects of that topic. So I try not to do that to everybody else. So I'm at the doctor's, but I'm listening. We are going to wrap it up for this morning. The jury is gone for the day. They are moving into talking about jury instructions. Closing arguments will be tomorrow morning, which is perfect because I can do this stream again to 10 a.m. tomorrow, go until the jury goes into deliberations, and then I have to go to work. Hopefully the jury deliberates more than doesn't come back with a verdict when I'm at work, because that is generally what happens. And then Wednesday, we can get back into our regular streaming Wednesday night court. And then Thursday, I am doing part 3 of Tessa's story with Captain Kern at 1:30. And then we have this large air traffic control lawsuit to get into that has 208 documents going all the way back to 2015. The complaint has been amended 4 times. And because DC is automatically federal, because it is not a state, I have to pay for all those documents. So I'm trying to cherry pick what I feel would tell the best story, or the story accurately, without having to spend, $50 to $100 on documents. So I will. No, Tugs mods aren't allowed in here. Just saying. Anyway, y'all have a great night or a great day, and I will see you tonight around 7:30. Since Slug told my daughter that bedtime is a myth, we will be trying to do the bedtime thing again. Since last night she didn't go to sleep until like 10 o'clock. And then she was up at 3:30. Yay. Oh yeah, you're here, but you're my mod. Like, you're my mod. Like, and thanks, JKD Buck, for the $2 super chat, my small offering. I appreciate Ung Hung Hero being the only one who made me eat a hot garlic clove. Thank you for that. I will see you guys on another one, on the next one. Let's see who we can redirect to. Who is live right now? Anybody good? Let's see. Customization. Who comes up on my redirect? Nick Starro is doing the ASAP Rocky trial, day 5 recap. That is another one that I've been sort of watching, but haven't really paid much attention to. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning. I love y'all. And we're going over to Nick Starro. Tell him I said hi. And y'all have a great day. I'll see you on the next one. Bye. You want to say bye? She's waving, but you want to say bye? Say bye. Say bye-bye. Okay. Just got here in time to say goodbye. Ciao.